Trauma-informed learning is basically the principles that to be aware that people's lived experiences are different, and everyone's lived experience is different, and some of those lived experiences could include traumatic experience, which could impact learning and the cognitive processing that is typically involved in a teaching experience. The main rule of thumb that I would suggest for instructors wanting to implement a trauma-informed framework is first to be aware that trauma exists and it can manifest in different ways, but not to be preoccupied with necessarily addressing that trauma in the group, but being physically present to be a supportive presence. And then part of that supportive presence is hopefully you have a smaller classroom. Hopefully you're dealing with 15 people or 22 people and you're not dealing with a classroom of 80 people. I think that's probably smart to have a smaller classroom size. Also have a disclaimer statement at the beginning if there is sexual violence content, if there is content on ways in which people were violently killed. Those can all be potentially re-triggering or re-traumatizing for someone who has that within their cadre of lived experience. So as a result of that, it would be useful if you knew ahead of time who those students were. And also if you're prepared to have some resources on hand, should someone feel distressed as a result of your class discussions, they might be able to turn to a trusted guidance counselor that they know, or a helpline that might be connected to the school. So just having linkages, not a cold contact that person might not know or feel safe with, but a trusted linkage of support or a network that could be useful to buffer that distress. Create spaces for listening as equally as talking, and create spaces for reflection that could be possibly artistic. It could be in the form of drawing or painting. Painting tends to be resource intensive and it will take time, but there can be a deeper reflection and an indirect reflection if that's I find that can be very useful if you have the time to be able to do that in a classroom setting. And ensure that people have an arc to be able to have a sense of beginning, middle, and end to the processing of that particular session. So don't interrupt it because you're plan it so that you're able to have the continuity of a completion of the material so that something isn't left unfinished or unresolved in the processing, whether it be verbal or a picture, a drawing, a poem, a piece of music. Make sure that there's opportunities to complete that reflection. If you choose to have discussions, you should have smaller groups of students to be able to digest specific pieces of content in the material that was presented so that you can very easily frame and contain what is discussed in the smaller groups, and also be physically present. Ensure that the students are safe as they're talking in their smaller groups, so that you don't just, the instructor shouldn't just sit at their desk and then watch the students discuss, but be an active presence in hearing what students are talking about and hearing the tone in which people are able to connect with about the material, and also, the nonverbal cues if people are withdrawing or if people are shutting down or if people are non-responsive or passive. These are all things that you might want to try to learn more about and ensure that the student feels safe. I think it's important for instructors to understand that each emotional response is hard to predict and normalize. So support the individual student as just that, an individual student. And if they need some time and space, again, they can participate and observe. If they don't want to disclose, and in some instances, some people don't want to disclose, and so they're able to sit and listen, or they're able to read some material and then respond to it from a personal standpoint without disclosing what their aspects were. You can ask questions like, I'm seeing or I'm hearing that, label the feeling again. I'm hearing that, or I'm seeing that you don't necessarily feel like you would like to participate in this conversation. Is there something that you would rather be doing? And then you can give them space at the side of the room to quietly continue It's probably important in my experience to not let that student leave the room, but be connected with you as the instructor and the members of their peers, but just perhaps do a different activity, and then you can have a one-on-one conversation with them afterwards. Or you can prepare facilitate a classroom activity and have the students engage in smaller groups while you attend to the student one-on-one. Or if you have a co-facilitator, one of you can attend to the student one-on-one and have a quieter conversation about what's going on and what supports that student might need.